And I will now turn to Ipek Yezdani, who is an independent journalist. Her byline is familiar to many people who've followed Turkish affairs. And she's a former foreign editor of Hurriyet, which is a leading newspaper in Turkey, but now, of course, is an independent reporter, and she's based in Istanbul. Ipek Yezdani, over to you.
Hello, and thank you very much for this nice introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Siddharth Varadarayan for organizing this very important meeting ahead of the G20 summit that will be held in India soon. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes. So it's a real pleasure and honor for me to be together with the esteemed colleagues from all over the world at this M20 meeting. I have been working as a journalist, and I have been covering diplomacy and international affairs for various national and international media companies for more than 25 years now. I am also the Vice President of International Press Institute Turkey National Committee and a board member at Turkish Journalists Union. Sorry, just a second, please. Okay, so I would like to, of course, talk about very briefly the situation of media freedom in Turkey. So when it comes to the situation of media freedom in Turkey, I'm afraid what I'm about to tell you is not very bright and not very promising for the future of journalism and journalists in Turkey. My colleague from Korea, South Korea, said the media was very polarized in Korea. To be honest, I would never think that I would miss those days when media was polarized in Turkey, because polarization means at the same time pluralism. However, right now, more than 90% of the mainstream media in Turkey is either under the control of the government or directly owned by the government. So there are some small-scale independent websites and TV channels and some small-scale newspapers who are trying to survive with tight budgets and under harsh conditions in Turkey. But this doesn't change the fact that more than 90% of the mainstream media is controlled by the government. So according to the latest report of RSF, Turkey is ranked 165th out of 180 countries in RSF's 2022 World Press Freedom Index. And according to the Turkish Journalists Union report on freedom of press, more than 40 journalists have been imprisoned in Turkey because of the journalistic activities over the past year. Just very recently, a prominent investigative Turkish journalist, Barış Pehlivan, whose latest book accused Turkey's last interior minister of having links with organized crime, has been locked up for the 5th time in 3 years. Having been jailed, released on parole, and locked up again, this time, Barış Pehlivan has been ordered back behind bars by text message. A report published by Germany's Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom in 2023 says Turkey is unfortunately copying the Russian playbook, using the judiciary to silence critical journalism. As a result of the pressure and efforts of the government to take control of the media, journalists have been arrested, trailed, unemployed, and forced to work with precarious unemployment and low wages for many years in Turkey now. Although the number of journalists in prison has decreased comparing to the previous years, this doesn't mean that the pressure on journalists has decreased. While the pressures on the arrest of journalists have decreased, we observe that the pressures have increased through trials and fines. We have a public advertising agency in Turkey. I'm sure you have similar establishments in your countries. This public advertising agency was founded to distribute public advertisements fairly. However, it has declared war on all newspapers criticizing the government. Economic embargoes are imposed on newspapers by advertisement suspension sections. On the other hand, there is Radio and Television Supreme Council, which is also an official institution in Turkey, and it has been imposing penalties amounting to millions of Turkish liras on independent television channels trying to bring the facts to the public in the recent years. The biggest media group is, of course, pro-government media group called Demirören. They own the popular Hurriyet, Daily Hurriyet, which I used to work before, and Posta newspapers, and they also own CNN the Turkish channel of CNN, and Channel D TV channels, and a number of other TV channels as well. So I would like to tell you very briefly about my personal story, because I believe it is a reflection of the situation of journalism and journalists in Turkey. I think I still have some time, right?
Yes, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So I used to work as the senior diplomatic correspondent for Daily Hurriyet until 2020, when I was fired from the newspaper by the new pro-government owners of the newspaper by Demirören. Until recently, Hurriyet was the most major newspaper in Turkey, and it was called the admiral ship of Turkish media. However, in March 2018, the owner of Hurriyet, which used to be Doğan Group, was forced to sell the newspaper and the whole media group to the pro-government businessman Demirören. If you wonder what Demirören was doing before, the main business of Demirören was selling bottled gas, which has nothing to do with media. So after Demirören purchased Hurriyet, journalists at the newspaper, including myself, started to get unionized because we felt insecure. And in September 2019, the number of journalists and other employees who have become a member of the Turkish Journalists Union has reached to such a critical level that Turkish Journalists Union was almost going to get the authorization in order to conduct a labor agreement with the employer. Just a couple of days before the union has reached that critical number, Hurriyet has laid off 45 journalists without any notice and without paying their legal compensation fees because of their unionization efforts. And I am one of these 45 journalists who were laid off by sending legal notices to our homes. For instance, I learned that I was fired from my mother when I was at the news gathering meeting at the office, because she was the one who received the legal notice at home, which was sent by my employer. Plus, Demirören has not paid our legal compensation fees, which was his legal obligation. And the 45 journalists who lost their jobs have worked 481 years in total at Hurriyet, and they got paid nothing for this. Of course, we have sued Demirören in order to get our legal rights, but it's too late, and the judiciary is unfortunately very slow in Turkey. So we have heard similar complaints from the colleagues all over the world today. My colleague from Japan, Hiroki Sugita, said most of the young people don't choose journalism as a profession anymore. So we have the same situation in Turkey. Unfortunately, journalism is an erasing profession in Turkey, which is struggling to survive under difficult circumstances. So this is all I would like to tell about the situation in Turkey and about my personal story. I thought my personal story just because I believe it's a reflection of the situation of journalism in Turkey. And I would like to thank you once more for organizing this very important meeting. And I'm ready to take part in any future initiatives that can be formed after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ipek Yezdani.